across the Atlantic, two men separated by time zones, accents, and wildly different snack preferences join forces. Not for glory, not for fame, but for something far more noble, a live stream. This is not just any live stream. No, this is Hold My Net. And so, dear viewer, you are not here to be entertained. You are here to be transformed, or mildly amused. Either is fine. From the United States, Ty, a man fueled by questions, coy food, and the occasional button he probably shouldn't press. And across the great pond, literal pond, Aaron. From Humber-Coy, steady, informed, British. Together they are not hosts. No, they are guides. They'll bring you experts. They'll bring you insight. They may even bring you slightly awkward pauses as someone forgets to unmute their mic. Each month, The Current brings with it a new guest, a traveler of the koi world, a bearer of insight, experience, perhaps even a few well-earned scars. Together, we cast our nets wide, not to catch but to understand, to pull up the deep things, the overlooked, the misunderstood. But that's the point, isn't it? This isn't scripted. This isn't rehearsed. This is the koi world, raw, real, and occasionally full of pond sludge. Each month they cast their net, not to trap but to explore, to gather wisdom from the brightest minds in koi keeping, and to share it with you, the brave viewer, who could be watching literally anything else right now. So whether you're here to learn, to laugh, or because you thought this was a cooking stream, welcome. You've entered the koi pit. You've tuned in to Hold My Net. Let's just hope Ty remembered to hit the Go Live button this time. But if not, that's what Aaron's for.
Well, welcome to Hold My Net, the show where koi health isn't just something we think about when they stop eating. It's the show where we're thinking about it all the time. How was that for a tagline, Aaron?
Well done.
I'm Ty. I'm your host. Aaron, my co-host. And we have a very special guest with us today. We have an actual fish veterinarian who's joining us today. Dr. Martinez is a licensed veterinarian in the state of Utah and Idaho, and his aquatic veterinary consulting and services is where you would go to find him. Recently, Dr. Martinez came to my home to help me with some issues I was having with my fish, some bacterial issues, and he let me film everything. So everything step by step, the entire process of giving them treatment and what all was involved with that. So without further ado, well, Aaron, is there anything else we need to talk about?
One more thing I'd like to say.
Yes.
Good morning to everyone on Ty's channel, and good afternoon or good evening to everyone in Oman.
Oh yeah, I forget that gets confusing.
Good morning and good evening to everybody.
Yes, when we first started this stream, we had the idea that we would have it being streamed on two channels. And I don't know if that's because in 1776, the United States declared their independence, and Aaron said, right, you guys stay over there, we'll be over here, if that was the whole deal. But so if you're in the US, or I don't care whose channel you go to, but just so you're aware, if you see things coming up on the chat that you're not seeing in the chat, that's because there's two different chats happening.
Right. Without further ado, let's bring in Dr. Robert Martinez.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Well, Robert, I was hoping that maybe you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you ended up on the fish side of animal medicine.
Oh, yeah, of course. So a little bit of a long story, but here in the U.S., once you're in vet school, it's a 4-year program. And when I went to Kansas State University for vet school. Once I was there, I was really interested in zoo medicine. So I started doing what we call externships here in the U.S. I'm not sure if international is different, but that between internships is once you graduate from vet school, you do an internship. So at that point, you're a veterinarian. So an externship is something you do as a student. Some international places still call them internships. So that's kind of the difference for at least the U.S. For the U.S. people. So I did a lot of externships in zoo medicine, and then I had the fortune to go to Oregon. And while I was in Oregon, we went to the Oregon coast, and that's where I got introduced to fish medicine. During that time, we got to work with koi fish, or not koi, rockfish. Learned how to sedate them and do physical exams. Never knew you could even do that. And that's as a veterinary student. Didn't know you could even do that. Talking with the doctor there, he had worked with a lot of koi. He started telling me about working with koi in Oregon, and then also traveling to Japan, helping koi there. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. And then went to the Oregon Coast Aquarium, toured it, and did a few things there. So from then on, I was like, I want to be an aquarium vet, was my goal. So come fourth year, essentially your fourth year, you kind of decide what you want to do and you cater your year to that. So I really wanted to do zoo medicine. And my goal was to do internships and then eventually residency. Well, fourth year, my wife got a job promotion. So we were separated my fourth year. She was living in another state in Iowa. So I had to change gears, couldn't really do the internship or the internship residency route for zoo. So I still wanted to do fish. So I did a program called Aquavet after I graduated. So traditionally in vet schools, at least back whenever I was in it, I graduated in 2014. Most schools had very limited aquatic exposure. So at K-State, I didn't get any. So only exposure I got was from my externships and then when I did Aquavet. Some of the coastal schools, such as like North Carolina, Florida, California, had some that you could do. But usually it was either a mention in one of their classes, or some people were lucky enough to have an actual fish health course. So you didn't really get much. So most people went to Aquavet. It's a 4-week program in Rhode Island. And there you kind of start with all aquatics. So the first thing you started off was with invertebrates, move up to fish, then you go to birds, reptiles, amphibians, all the way up to marine mammals. So you get a good exposure to all of it. And then I did a 5-week program called Aquavet 3. So 2 weeks at Georgia Aquarium, 1 week at University of Georgia at the vet school doing endoscopy and surgery, and 2 weeks in Mexico working with dolphins. So from there, that's where I learned everything about fish, how to treat them, how to do physical exams. So then once I graduated, moved to Iowa, I started my mobile business. And that's where I started seeing fish, and kind of that's where it all started. So kind of a long way to get there, but eventually that's kind of where how it happened.
Oh, awesome. When you came and helped me, we were talking about a bunch of okay, I have a lot of questions for you, but something that I thought might be good to talk about really quick, and Aaron and I had talked about this the other day actually, is that in the US and in the UK, what kinds of products are available to hobbyists is very different in like what people can try to do to treat their fish themselves, or what might anyways, where I'm going with this is if people are wondering like, well, why didn't you try this or that, just be aware that different worlds we live in. But the question I had for you is if you could give advice to hobbyists dealing with an unknown issue with their fish, what do you think is the first thing that they should kind of check or look for aside from water quality?
Oh, of course. So generally, the first thing whenever someone's having an issue, um, most of the time before they reach out to a vet, what most people do go online and start Googling, or they go to forums. But I would say if you're either new to fish or you're experienced with fish and you're having issues, I know we're going to skip over water quality, but water quality is probably the first thing you should check. See, has anything acutely changed? The next thing I would say beyond water quality is checking your life support system. Is there a pump that's going out? Is the heater not working correctly? Is the aerators not on? If you have timers, did something malfunction with the timers? And the reason I'm kind of harping on life support and water quality is with fish disease to occur, usually there has to be some kind of stressor. And the stressor that usually goes on with that is, was there a pH swing? Was your KH low? And that allowed for a pH swing. If this is a pond, is there a sudden cold snap that occurred? Did it get extremely hot all of a sudden? Is there some kind of malfunction? So those are always the first things to check. Because a lot of times if you can find either a water quality issue or some kind of life support system that's malfunctioned, that might be your initial thing to fix and correct. And a lot of times you correct that corrects the issues. If everything's looking good from there, that's whenever you start kind of taking a closer look at your fish and really looking at their behaviors and noticing what they're doing. So a lot of times, are they flashing? And what flashing is basically they're rubbing up against the sides of the tank, the sides of the pond, any of the decor. The reason they call it flashing is whenever they do it, sometimes the light gleams off their scales and kind of makes a little flash. So if you start noticing them just doing erratic behavior, sometimes when they're rubbing up against something, that's their way of scratching because something is irritating or itching them. Are they hanging out near the water outlet, inlets, or underneath any waterfalls, because that's where most oxygen is going to be. So if they're having either gill issues, that's where they're going to be, or if there's not enough water turbulence or turnover, you're going to have low oxygen in your pond. So they're going to want to stay in areas that are more oxygenated. Are they staying more at the bottom and not really moving? So that's whenever you kind of start noticing those things. And generally what I recommend is reaching out to someone. So here in the US, you can go to either the American Association of Fish Vets. There is a find a fish vet in your area or state. There's also WAVMA, the World Aquatic Veterinary Medical Association. And that one being world, you can actually look for people internationally. In the UK, there is, I believe it's the Fish Veterinary Society. They as well have, I believe, a find a fish vet. So you can also find someone internationally or in the UK to help you. Now, kind of going on to your question, your comment about products that are over the counter. Here in the US, I believe it was in 2017, the FDA pulled a lot of the antibiotics that you could buy over the counter for fish. Main reason for that was because of antimicrobial resistance. It's a growing issue in people and in animals. And unfortunately, there are some people who were buying a lot of these products that are labeled for fish and using it on themselves. So there's a big thing to pull a lot of those products. So that's why you find very limited products now out. And then sometimes you can find them online, but there's less that you can find than back in the day. The other hard part is that whenever sometimes fish are showing signs, a lot of people will put in a lot of different products into their pond and it may fix the issue, which is great. Other times, it may not fix the issue, or sometimes it can make it worse. So throwing antibiotics into your pond can sometimes inadvertently kill your biological filter. And some people aren't really thinking about that. They're just seeing, oh, my fish have ulcers or red spots. They're concerned with antibiotics, start throwing things in there. All of a sudden, you kill their biological filter, then you're going to have issues with high ammonia, and then you have other issues on your hands. So just being leery that whatever you add into your pond, plus or minus maybe what you need to treat for, but also there may be things that could happen inadvertently. And the big thing is usually killing your biological filter, or at least setting it back, which really can affect things from there. So hopefully I answered that question. I know that was kind of beating around the bush a little bit.
Oh, no. That was, no, I think that was some great advice for people. It gives them, I appreciate being able to better understand why antibiotics are not available today like they used to be, and the reasoning behind that. It makes a lot of sense. So, you know, I noticed in the chat that people are wanting to, well, towards the end of this, we are going to have kind of a Q&A. If you have questions you want to ask Dr. Martinez.
I've got one saved from Susan. I think Nikki's just
you?
responded to her that
Okay.
I'll bring that back up. I've highlighted
Perfect.
it to bring back up.
Okay.
And I think
thank you, Aaron.
I'm glad this point was raised, because I feel there'll be a lot of people in my chat will have maybe said, how come he didn't chloramine tea? How come he didn't aquaflavin? Now, this was mentioned to Ty straight away. The first picture I said, I gave him a list of stuff that we would use.
This was before I even called you Dr. Martinez.
So this is what I would do for X, Y, and Z, and everything that we would do, barring using Pectoral as not available in the US. So and you are right. Like when we do sterilize the water with either chloramine tea, it really kicks the filters back, and then you have to be really careful about your nitrogen cycle then. But yeah, there was a lot of things when Ty was just starting out with issues that I said to him, try this, and basically nothing was available.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, because in the UK, I'm not sure what's approved, but I think you guys have more things available to you over the counter or online versus the US does.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, one thing, really quick, one thing that Dr. Martinez did on one of the ulcers on one of my fish is something I'd never seen anybody do before. And it was this bandage that he put on my fish. And so normally when I've seen online or different places, people treat an ulcer on a fish, the fish is put in oxygenated water with something that will sedate them. Then they get pulled out, put on a damp towel that's covered them, and then it gets cleaned and bandaged, or however somebody might do it. But Dr. Martinez, he did it all in the water, which was pretty cool. I'd never seen that. Aaron, I sent you a clip of that. Could we pull that up really quick?
Of course we can. Just give me
from the video we made when Dr. Martinez came over.
So whenever you look at a fish from here, so that's the vent or the cloaca. So their coelom is basically all this right here. And then these guys,
oh, that's the wrong video.
So basically when you open up their mouth, you go straight in with these.
Whoa.
That's the one.
Hold on. I got to get this set up.
Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. So this goes to its own Wi-Fi band, and then just goes to the app. So this company is called Edge Life. So the nice thing is that this is completely waterproof, so it can actually just go under. A lot of the probes you can just put under, but you can't put the whole unit under. That makes it a little bit harder.
But you can with this one?
Yep. So
oh, wait,
it's not
Aaron,
going to damage anything.
I think that's the wrong video.
You only sent me two.
There's that little thing that's moving.
I know. It was
Right
the other
there.
one.
So whenever you look at a fish from here, it's going to kind of tongue. It helps with what we call hemopoiesis. That basically helps with
How
growing
far do you
red
want to
blood
go from
cells, and it
video
also helps
side?
with antibody production. And then their tail kidney is just like our kidney, but start from nose to tail. So
I don't think that your bandage is in that video.
No, the one that's playing right now. It's not in this one.
Right. Well, I did want to show the ultrasound
with
video
these,
Whoa. Hold on.
because as
Can
quite a
people
few
hear
people,
us right now?
yeah, people can hear us, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So as my wife's worked in the vets all her life, one thing that she said to me while watching this is, my word, like, they haven't seen portable equipment like that. And we're just saying before the live started, as big as this armchair in the background is how big the scanner is that they use. So to have something as portable as that puts it straight on to a tablet, that is incredible. So I'll play this video now, and we'll go from there.
Gotta get this set up.
sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. So this goes to its own Wi-Fi band, and then just goes to the app. So this company is called Edge Life. So the nice thing is that this is completely waterproof, so it can actually just go under. A lot of the probes you can just put under, but you can't put the whole unit under. That makes it a little bit harder.
But you can with this one?
Yep. So it's not going to damage anything. So right there. So you see that little thing that's moving?
Right there. That's the heart.
Yep. So unlike other animals where you can use the stethoscope to listen to them, you can't really do that with fish, unfortunately. So if you're doing surgery, the way you monitor heart rate is you can use a Doppler. So you just put it right over here, and you can just hear the whoosh, or you can use an ultrasound. So it's basically right about here is where the heart lies, about right here.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So like right between their pectoral fins, that's where the heart is?
Yep. So right here it's called a pectoral girdle. So it's basically a big thick piece of cartilage, something like our sternum. Or this guy's probably more bone.
Back in the room.
Yeah.
So that's an impressive piece of equipment.
Yeah, that's the newest toy that I just recently got. It's something I've been wanting for a while. So the big thing is it takes a lot of experience and know-how on how to use it. So that's something I'm still gaining and learning myself. Besides doing fish and mobile work, I also work in an ER with small animals. So that's something that we use a lot, is ultrasounds, looking for any free fluid in the abdomen, looking for any obvious masses with the organs. So it's something I'm pretty proficient at with looking for abnormal things in small animals. So still learning that with koi. That's something that I really want to gain that skill. So eventually I can start identifying sexes, saying if it's a male or female, if there is any free fluid in the abdomen or in the swim bladder. Also looking at organs and getting identification of those and seeing if anything's enlarged. So it's something that I'm definitely going to have to learn. I do have other colleagues that are pretty proficient at it and finding those things. So it's a skill I want to learn. And me and Ty have talked about we're doing a day and maybe checking his koi out so I can learn and we can maybe video that and see how that kind of works out. But yeah, it's a fun, neat tool that we have, as especially with fish medicine. I find the mobile aspect and going to people's houses and doing everything pond side is to great advantage and less stress than taking them into a clinic.
I think being able to sex fish at the side of a pond, knowing whether it's a guaranteed male or female, would certainly be an advantage for a dealer to have equipment like this. I think, especially as a consumer, knowing that they could go guaranteed female, that would that would be a massive benefit.
Mhm.
I,
No, for
I
sure.
won't ask him to disclose this. I did. I know it's a very expensive piece of equipment. I asked Dr. Martinez what those things run, and they're bucks. But I think it's an invaluable tool for Robert to have that in his medical bag, medical tackle box.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, medical tackle box. I like that. No, but you know what? The ultrasound is making me think of some of the other stories you were sharing with me that I couldn't fit into that video. You know, one of the ones you shared with me that I made sure to put in the video was working with electric eels.
Mhm.
That's pretty wild. But you know, I was curious, do you have any other like unique fish you've practiced medicine on that were challenging that you can tell us about?
Probably before the eel, the most interesting one was a red-tailed catfish. Um, if memory serves, it was probably about 45 pounds and I think almost 3 feet long or just shy of 3 feet. So a fairly large fish. Um, and this is whenever I was working part-time at a zoo that they had just required. And poor thing in transit got pretty beat up. It had ulcers on its face, on the whiskers, and the dorsal fin and pectoral fins were all torn. Um, so we needed to sedate it and repair those fins, and then start on antibiotics. Now, typically, whenever I sedate, as you saw in the video, is usually I'll add in the sedative into the water. So in the U.S., I typically use MS-222. That's approved in the U.S. In the UK and then other places, they do have other approved medications. So Eugenol is another one that you can use, which is basically clove oil. And then there's a few other products. But MS-222, it's really easy. It's a powder. You add it into the water, and usually you'll buffer it since it does lower the pH. Now, this is a large fish, and that's a lot of powder to add into the tank that it was in. So other things you can do injectables, but this is a large fish. So whenever you're trying to pull it up to the side of the tank, it's thrashing around. So trying to get a needle into it, not very easy. So this is what. So what I find with fish medicine is that you have to kind of think outside the box, or think outside the tank, so to speak. And this is kind of a side. But when I was in Aquavet, one of the instructors, or actually the director, Dr. Strema, was telling us about whenever he was at an aquarium, he had to sedate I believe it was either a guitar fish or a sawtooth shark. And essentially those are benthic, so they lay at the bottom. And those, they have what are called spiracles. So that's how they lay at the bottom, and that's how they get water through their gills, is that they have those little things up here at the top that force water in. So what he ended up doing was he dived into the water. He put concentrated MS-222 in one of those kind of gallon buckets, and you use to like spray weeds out in your garden. Put a bunch of that, swam over, and then just sprayed all that into the spiracles. That sedated the fish enough that they were able to guide it into, I believe, a structure, and then get it to where they needed to do their procedure. So I had that in mind. So I ended up getting a 60 ml syringe, so about yay big. Put concentrated MS-222 in there. I put in what's called a red rubber. It's like a soft tube that you put at the end. And then, so what we did was, to get the fish to come to us, is we put a tarp in the water, got the red-tailed catfish to lay onto the tarp, and then two people grabbed the other side and then pulled it towards me. So it's kind of semi-trapped against the side. And then I just kind of leaned over the tank and then put the red rubber tube right into the gills, and then I just started squirting just small amounts. So initially it's thrashing around, splashing water at me. I just kept on just doing small little amounts, and eventually it just slowed down, became sedate. We were quickly able to repair those fins, treat some of the wounds, and then we just removed the tarp and then let it wake up from there. So that actually worked out really well. And it was a very short procedure. If I needed to do something a little bit longer, at that point, we probably could have done injectables if needed. But just learning from someone else's experience and then using that to what I needed to do actually worked out really well. I had no idea if it was going to work or not, but I knew what we were going to do was safe enough that it wasn't going to put the fish or anyone else in harm's way. And luckily, it worked out really well.
It's a quick question in the chat for you there.
Yeah. Well,
They're asking, is there a difference between clove oil and clove bud oil?
ooh, I'm not 100%. So the active ingredient that you're mainly looking for is eugenol. So here in the U.S., you can get what are those called? Essential oils, and they say 100% clove oil. So you assume that it's 100% eugenol. Now here in the U.S., at least, a large amount of these products we call pharmaceuticals, so they're not under FDA regulations or anything. So it's hard to say, are they truly 100% eugenol or a mixture of something else? So between those other two products, I couldn't tell you if one had 100% eugenol or if it's a little bit different. But based on the difference, say it's like 60% or 70%, basically there is ways to do math based on how much active ingredient it is, and then that just changes the dose that you use overall.
So I know that with 100% clove oil, it's 2 drops per liter. Is the double check that before you just take my word for it. But that is the dose I used to sedate a fish a long time ago.
Yeah, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the actual dose. There is published dose out there for eugenol. So usually it's a milliliter dose. And then the big thing with eugenol, at least if you're using the essential oils, is that it's an oil. So oil and water don't mix very well. So I have seen people just add it into water and then just stir it up, and it seems to work. Typically what I do is I mix it with a little bit of ethanol. So usually I believe it's 1 to 10 or 1 to 15 ratio. I'd have to look it up. I haven't used it in a while. But I'll mix that up first so that it mixes a little bit better in the water. Now, the thing with eugenol, it works very well. The only thing that I've noticed compared to MS-222 is that the recovery is typically a little bit longer. But they recover fine. The other thing is that some people say with eugenol, and I think it's more the essential oil rather than the commercial product, is that since it is an oil based, that some fish, if they have a lot of gill disease, that it sometimes will irritate their gills or it'll stick on their gills and then affect them a little bit longer. The ones that I've sedated are usually generally healthy. It was just more for just quick physical exams or trying to get them out of quarantine. I haven't had much issues, but they do take a little bit longer to wake up compared to MS-222.
I've just messaged Stu to see what the one we use is, because I don't think we use clove oil.
Yeah,
I'll come back to you on that one. I've just sent in a quick WhatsApp.
I don't know if that was Canadian, but I think that one had eugenol in it. There's a few different products that are out there, but in the US, MS-222 is what most people use. Yep, and then there's that one that
So this is, yeah. Sorry, yeah, I showed this to you, but this is just
Sure, okay.
Oh, there you go.
And I looked that one up to see what it was. On the website, I couldn't figure out what the active ingredient was on that completely.
Smelling it does not smell like eugenol.
Yeah. The one thing with clove oil or eugenol is it has a very distinct smell. Some people absolutely hate it. Some people don't mind it. Some people love it. To me, it's always been described to me as a Christmassy smell, which I do agree. It does have kind of that cinnamony, spicy smell. But yeah, some people just absolutely hate the smell of it.
So, you know what? I shared this with you a little bit earlier before we started, but somebody who, so Jody P, if you're part of like the Fish Fam group, she had commented on that video that you and I did about her daughter wanting to become a fish veterinarian. And this was before like she'd even seen that video. So I just thought that was kind of a cool thing. But the reason I bring that up is I'm curious what you see in the future of fish medicine, or if there's anything you're seeing with new vets and the kind of training that's being offered and stuff.
So it's a very good thing, because I absolutely love teaching, and I truly believe that veterinarians need to be exposed to more fish, and I'm starting to see more of a trend going that way. It's not part of like the core curriculum of all the schools right now, but there is a lot of schools that are adding it in either as an elective, or depending on if they're more on the coast, will add those into their curriculum, which is great. And you're starting to see more people who are interested in fish. And the reason I say that is every school has kind of interest clubs. So each school usually has either like a zoo or wildlife club. Some schools even have dedicated aquatic clubs, or they're under chapters of WAVMA as well. So there's a lot of interest that is gathering with that, which is wonderful. Because whenever I was in school, the only thing that was out there was Aquavet, and then there's another program called Marvet that you could do as an extern to go learn about aquatic medicine. And that goes across just fish and everything else. And then back in the day, once I was in school, there were books that were out on fish medicine, but there were very few. And the big book that was kind of our Bible, so to speak, was called, everyone calls it the Noga book. It's by Edward Noga. It's Fish Diseases. And that was everybody's book at the time. Now it seems like every year there's more and more books being published, and more papers that are coming out just on general fish health. So there's a lot more resources out there. And then now with technology, there's a lot of podcasts that are out there. So there's one called Aquadocs that she's now an intern or a resident. I can't remember where she's at. Her name is Michelle Greenfield. She was in Indiana as an intern. I think she got a residency recently, but she was a student at Cornell, and she started this podcast, and she was interviewing aquatic specialists from all walks of life, from invertebrates to fish to marine mammals, from people who are clinicians, researchers, conservationists, and just introducing people to the field. And people didn't realize that aquatics is so vast in itself. So it's been pretty interesting to see more interest out there. And with that more interest, there's more opportunity for students than I have. Because the route that I've taken, you talk to 10 fish vets, and everybody has done a different route than to do what they're doing. Compared to now, you have more formal routes to see fish and to do things, and more opportunities. So it's a great time right now, and I think it's going to continue to grow with more interest, and that's the hope. And with different organizations, that's what I'm hoping to help foster, is allowing students and even veterinarians who want to get into the field more opportunities.
Well, I think this is a great segue when you're talking about the different publications, different kind of research that's being done today. You had been sharing with me some academic papers that you've been writing and working on in your own research. would you be willing to share some of what you've been up to?
Oh, of course. So when I was a student, I didn't really do any research or anything else like that. So a lot of my other colleagues have. So they've done scientific papers. So this is kind of a new era or new avenue I'm stepping into. Currently, we're still in the drafting phase, but I have a paper with 2 pathologists out of Washington State at the diagnostic lab. It's on a goldfish that has nephrocalcinosis. And basically it's calcification of the kidneys. And that caused a lot of other issues, unfortunately, with this fish. So we're basically writing that up as a case report. So that one's in the works. We haven't turned that one in yet. The other thing I'm working on that's taken me a few years to get done, and this also kind of brings us back to just more recognition of fish medicine, is now there is a recognized specialty in the US for fish. In the UK and some other European countries, they do have specialty for fish. So if you were to go to those fish, those veterinarians, you can call them a fish specialist. Legally, even though I do work with fish a lot, I can't legally market myself as a specialist since I don't have that title. But eventually, or now, they do have a fish specialty in the US. So through a group called the American Board of Veterinary Practitioners, or ABVP, they have one that's identified as fish practice. So ABVP specializes in individual species. So there's one for dogs and cats, food animal, reptiles and amphibians. So essentially for that, right now I have all my stuff ready for the application. I just have to write 2 papers for ABVP, or actually 2 or 10 smaller papers, which it seems like it's going to be the smaller papers. And those basically you have to show case reports and show the workup that you're doing with these fish. So they're pretty involved. They want to see how you work up a case, what diagnostics you use, and how you treat them, to show basically that you're thinking and working as a fish veterinarian. The other thing is what I'm trying to do for one of the papers is I'm doing a fish eye study with an ophthalmologist I work with currently. So we're trying to determine normal ophthalmic normals in rainbow trout. So earlier this year, we did we sedated 10 rainbow trout, and then we took different measurements. So we did intraocular eye pressures, we did measurements of the eye, we took pictures of the eye as well, and then the ophthalmologist, she did fundic exam, so looking at the back of the eye. Trying to see what else we did. Oh yeah, we did an ultrasound of the eye as well. And then those fish, once they were sedated, they were euthanized, and then we took the eyes and sent those off for histology so that we can compare those to the ultrasounds. And basically what we're trying to do is just look for normal, so that whenever other people are looking at rainbow trout and they notice any disease in the eyes, then they can look at this paper and say, okay, well, these are the normal pressures, these are the normal findings of the eye, and then they can compare that to whatever disease process they're looking at. So those are kind of the big things I have in the works currently. I still need to do a little bit more writing. The big thing is, since I didn't do any of that in school, this is all new avenue. So I'm having to do a lot more research on how to write all this, how to do the proper research. So puts me a little bit of a disadvantage, but it's been fun to kind of learn all this new process, and something I wish I would have done more in school.
Sorry, no, so I got my degree in English, and writing academic papers was like my favorite part of school because I'm a giant nerd.
Hang fire. You've got a degree in English.
Uh-huh.
How come we can't understand each other when we speak to each other on the phone then?
I can
You've
understand
got
you
a
just
degree
fine,
in my
Aaron.
language, yet when we speak, we're always struggling with words.
You're yanking my chain, man.
Just let me interrupt a second. So I've put this chat on the screen, and this chat is both chats. So people
Oh.
on your channel and people on my channel will be able to see each other's comments.
Oh, I love it.
I've also got a couple of people asking about the sedate. Now I've got a picture of the stuff we use over here. Vince has said he sent me a picture of it. Rick from New Forest Coy uses this, and Anne in the chat and Stu in the chat both use this product. So I want to see if you guys have used it. And then Anne's got a follow-up question to that. So this is what we use, or they use. Some people use the sedate. This is what Rick and a few others use over here.
Okay. Yeah, I've never used that product before. So funny enough, with a lot of fish vets and the organizations we're in, we do have these listservs. So whenever people are having issues or they don't know how to treat something, a lot of times what we do is we share cases or share questions on there, and then other people can answer them. I can't remember how long ago it was. It was probably maybe last month. Someone was asking, as far as sedation for fish, besides MS-222, what have other people have used and what has been your experience? And I can't remember. I think it was someone international who did mention that one drug. They said that they haven't used it in a while, but they did use it just to kind of see. And they had pretty good success with it. They didn't have any issues or anything else. They just said that it just all matter of what's available to you. And they actually mentioned, they said it would be interesting. There's probably someone, either one of them or someone or a student who's coming up, to do a study on various sedatives and see kind of the differences between them. Because every sedative probably works well in its own thing. It's just a matter of what works best for you and what is available. I know in the US, it's pretty easy to get MS-222. So I think that's what a lot of people lean towards. And then the other distinction, I'm not sure if this really relates to the UK. I'm pretty sure they have their own regulations. But in the US, for ornamental fish, I can pretty much sedate with whatever I want. And the reason is that these are not going to be used for food. Now, whenever you're getting into aquaculture, so fish that are raised for food, you have to use approved products in the US. So MS-222 is approved for finfish in the US. And whenever you sedate those fish, you have to have a withdrawal period of 21 days before they can go into market. So there's a lot of data that goes into what can and can't be used for those fish. Now, working with ornamentals, there's a lot of other laws and regulations that protect us from using a lot of things off-label for that. So it would be interesting. I've never used that product, but I've heard a lot of people have had good success with it.
I've just I've just asked Nikki to check on for us to see if we can get MS-222 over here, but it doesn't look like that's available over here.
Yeah, so I order mine from a company called Sindel. I know that they have a US and a Canadian base. So I don't know if they can ship it to you from there or not.
Well,
This person in the chat, these guys are lovely. They come up at every show and say hello. Really nice people.
Okay.
Right. Are we ready to pull up some questions, Ty?
you know what? Yes, but there was one last really important thing I wanted to do really quick. So, Robert,
Don't worry.
can you tell us briefly about your services you offer, pondside services, and how people can contact you?
Well, of course. So usually the easiest way to get a hold of me is email. So if you go to my website, I believe it's aquaticvetconsulting.com. There is a contact me, and then basically you just fill that out and it sends an email right to me. My email, it's stupidly long, but it's Dr. Dr. Rob R-O-B Martinez, Martinez at aquaticvetconsulting.com. And once you contact me, essentially most people put in the topic of what's going on. They give me kind of a brief history, and then I reach out to them to set up a consult. So the video that Ty took, that's exactly how all my consults go. I'm very chatty. I try and get things done within an hour or two, but sometimes I stay a little longer because people ask me questions and I don't give short answers a lot of the times, or it reminds me of something else, and then I start talking about other things. All fish related, but I get very excited because the big thing with these consults is education. And the thing I also learned is I don't know everything about koi or every fish. I know the fish health. So even with Ty, he was telling me all the different breeds and their demeanors, and I learn a lot from people. And the other thing is that whenever I go to your pond or to your tank, to me it's a partnership, because the only way those fish are going to get healthy is if you're involved. So I love for people to watch me, take pictures, because you're going to be the ones that are treating it. So we discuss husbandry, we discuss cleaning the tank, cleaning the filters, we discuss nutrition. So it's all involved to try and get your fish healthy. And then with as far as treatment goes, then that's where we talk about at what level do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable giving injections? Do we need to do immersion treatments? If it's a lot of fish, I'd rather do medicated feeds. So a lot of different things that we can do. And that's how most people get me. Now, in the U.S., per each state you're licensed in, I can do telehealth. So if someone calls me from a different state or internationally, I can definitely talk to you and help you. The only thing I can't do legally is I cannot diagnose nor dispense any medications. But if you have general questions for something that's going on with your pond or things that I can help you with, more than happy to sit down with anyone, discuss what's going on, share pictures, share videos, and try and get you either someone that can help you or talk to you about what's going on and what things that we can correct in the husbandry or things that you can do and try at home to try and get your fish healthy.
Is that the correct email address? I've just got it off your website.
Oh, yep. That is the correct one. Yep. Thank you for sharing that.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I think we should open it up to questions with the time we have left. What time is Vince's live start?
In an hour.
In an hour. Okay.
I did.
I thought it was in 5 minutes for a second. I was like, oh, geez.
So I want to run through some questions, and I have asked Vince to come on here if he is on his very best behaviour. And just speak about the koi show to what some of the other viewers will not understand of what's gone on. So let's get through some questions.
Oh, about the national show over in the UK that just happened this last weekend?
I think there's a lot of people on both sides where they probably won't see that happening. So most important first, let's see if we can help Susan out. This is Susan's question.
Okay.
Do you want to read that out, Ty? Or
Let's see. Was Susan in your chat or my chat?
It's on all chats. I've put it on the screen for you.
Got it. I need help, guys. I still have body flukes. I scraped yesterday and found over 50 flukes on one. I've used Hikari Prazi Pro, Minifin Pond Strength, and currently Koi Prazi, but still have flukes.
Just before we go any further, Susan is in the US, so any advice that you give her will be not. I won't be able to advise her on what I would use and practices over here, because the stuff we would use you can't get in America. So this is over to you guys.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, so flukes, those are very hard. So there's two type of flukes. Some people, you can kind of differentiate ones between gills and body, but they kind of go between either. So there's gyrodactylus and dactylogyrus. One is a live bearer and one is an egg bearer, meaning that one will give birth to live, and then another one will produce eggs, and then those eggs will hatch, and then you'll have more. So the hard part with the egg layers is those sometimes are harder to treat, because those eggs generally are resistant to the treatment, and the Prazi usually will go for the adults. So then once you treat it, those eggs will hatch. I'd have to look in the books, but I think it's usually 1 to 2 weeks, and it also depends on what your water temperature is depending on how quickly those mature. So then you can treat, you may out of the window, and then those hatch, and then they reattach from there. So generally, once you scrape, it's trying to identify which one you have, and then that will also determine how long you treat. So generally, with Prazi, you'll want to do your initial treatment and then treat in a week. If it's an egg layer, you may want to do 3 or 4 treatments for that to get them. The other hard part is if you have them in the gills as well, those can take longer to treat than the ones that are just on the body. So that's sometimes where you have to treat a little bit longer with them. Other things that you can do to kind of help is I'm always a big advocate of adding salt to the water. And the big thing is it helps with what we call osmotic stress. So this is getting a little bit nerdy, as I did in the video, but with fish, especially freshwater fish, they are what they're called hypertonic to their solution, meaning they have more solutes than the water. So by simple diffusion, water tends to go towards areas of high concentration. So freshwater fish are constantly intaking water. So physiologically, their body has to expel that water, and everything happens through the gills. The gills are an amazing organ, and they're constantly doing from the water. They're also expelling things, so they expel urea through that. So they're not like us where we urinate and get rid of waste. They do that through their gills a lot of the times. Also, they're doing acid base balance, so getting rid of carbon or bicarbonate or CO2. And then they also help with electrolyte balance. So intaking sodium, expelling sodium, taking in chloride, expelling chloride. And all these are active processes in the body, meaning that they have to use energy to do that. So if your fish is sick, the body can't really regulate doing your normal functions and also try and take care of itself. So by adding in salt, that decreases the amount of water intaking. So then it kind of gives their body a little bit of a rest and less stress so that they can really focus on healing. So I know that was a long answer for that. And then the other thing with praziquantel, whenever you're treating the water, I don't have any I've been meaning to look this up to see if there's any studies, but anecdotally from what I've heard from other fish vets is that Prazi does degrade in the water every time it's used. So the first time you use it, that's usually the highest concentration you can get in the water. Then the second time you use it, it seems to degrade a little bit more. A lot of people suspect it has to do with our biological filter that just is eating it up a little bit quicker. So then the second time you put it in, your concentration is a little bit less. I know some aquariums, what they'll do is they actually take the water and they send it out to see what the Prazi levels are, because it could be that you just need to add in more. So that's where it kind of gets a little bit hard to say is it not working because the prosy is just less concentration? The other thing that I've heard, and again, this is anecdotal, is that some people believe that prosy doesn't kill the flukes and that actually just paralyzes them. So it paralyzes them, they fall to the bottom, and that they wake up and then they can reattach. Again, that's anecdotal, but what some people advocate is using prosy, but then also making sure that you vacuum up the debris at the bottom so that you can get any of the eggs or any of the adults. So, and that's what makes it hard whenever you're treating the pond itself, is that your pond is already affected. So it's treating beyond when those eggs are to hatch, and then also trying to clean the bottom debris. And if you don't have a bare bottom pond, or you have either an earthen pond, or you have a lot of rocks and such at the bottom, that can make it harder to try and clean. So sometimes you may have to do other treatments besides just prosy, because that's always been my go-to. And I've been lucky with most owners that they've been able to control things. But sometimes if we're having issues, I think I saw in the chat that she's treating it for more than 2 months. There may be other modalities that need to be done to try and control those flukes.
I've just got, so Susan has been struggling for a couple of months with that. And I've just got a way in which we do it in the UK versus what I've seen in the US. So when Nikki comments it for me, I can bring it up on the screen. So in the UK, it's quite customary to PP prior to fluke treatment. It helps strip the slime coat, so then when we're using fluke treatment, it actually works. I've used fluke treatments before in this country, before using PP, and I've had to treat and treat and treat. And then since using PP first to then go in, I found that I've had much greater success. Is that something that's customary to be done in the States?
Can you tell me what PP is?
Potassium permanganate.
Thank you, Ty. Your English degree served you well there.
You definitely can use potassium permanganate. Usually more of the aquaculture, like ornamental aquaculture, they'll use that quite a bit. It's not something I've used a lot of. And potassium permanganate, from what I understand, basically it's kind of, you put in the amount to get a certain color, and then you have to maintain that color for, I can't remember, I know Ty has used it for so many hours, and then it slowly kind of degrades. So depending on your comfort level and also your experience, that's where it can get a little bit harder when using something like that. And I believe in the US, they do have access to it. It's not, I believe it over the counter. It's nothing that needs a prescription or anything else. Now, the one thing that it can do with potassium permanganate is that does affect the biological filter. I don't think it can fully kill it. It all depends on the dose, but it can definitely set you back a little bit. So that's another thing to take into consideration.
Sorry, it's that's how you spell it. If there's anybody here in the US or the UK who's unfamiliar.
Yeah, and Ty, whenever you used it, I'd have to look it up because I've never used it myself. And I've talked to a lot of ornamental aquaculture that used it in ornamentals. But from what I understand, don't you have to like add in so much till it gets to a certain color, and then it needs to maintain that color for so many hours? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So the from how I understand it, the PP treatment, when you use it, it starts eating up the organics in the pond. So any fish poop, anything that's around, it's going to just eat through. And so it'll go from being like a deep purple to a pink to a brown. And depending on the amount of organics and how much treatment you've used is how quickly that'll degrade. So what has been recommended to me is when, and Aaron, maybe I should let you explain this because you're the one who taught me how to do this.
So it can be used best with a TDS meter. Now, I have never done it with a TDS meter. I have people stood with me telling me at what point color it is, because I'm colorblind. So PP for me scared the living daylights out of me because I couldn't see when it changed. So I had my wife and my son stood by the pond. I had my 2 dealers on video call when I was going through it to do it like that. But Marcus, who's in the chat now, this chat, I can bring him up. Now, next time I do it, I will be doing it on the phone with the method I know and Marcus's method to try and see when that turns, because doing it with a TDS pen, you can keep it at an exact level until you're ready to go. Is it TDS or ORP? It might be ORP. Marcus, please tell me, is it ORP or TDS in the chat? Is it ORP? That's what Scraggs is saying. Well, one of them is a way that you can do it, but the way that I've done it is a set grammage to my pond, and I've kept it purple for, was it 4 hours, Nick? 4 hours? ORP meter, not TDS. My mistake. I knew there was one of them. So that is something, if you know a good dealer that knows this method, get on the phone with them. It's something that I really don't want to go into on YouTube, exact doses and how I do it, because how I do it is not, I know the exact literage of my pond because it was filled up with a hosepipe meter. And I think if people are slightly out, that's where they could have problems. So there's one thing before we'll go on to the next question, and I know Vince has got a question that he wants to ask you. There's a chap in the chat, this guy here, he has just lost all his fish due to a power cut. I'm absolutely gutted for you, mate. I know there's a few people that have expressed that. He is a super nice guy, and I hope it doesn't stop you from the hobby. Carry on with your build, bud, and we wish you all the best here.
Yeah, I'm terribly sorry. God, that's awful. Jeez.
One last thing. So, Robert, this is Vince. Vince, Robert, Vince. Best
Good
behavior.
evening. Yeah, now over in Canada, they're not able to get things like praziquantel and stuff like that, and they have to treat for flukes with PP, as in they do, I think it's three doses day after day at a set dosage for killing PP, for killing the flukes. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on using potassium permanganate on killing flukes.
I do know it is a treatment that you can do. As far as my experience, I've never used it before. Most of the time when I've heard it being used, it's usually with in the ornamental industry, them using it in those stocks, because the ornamental industry, a lot of times they're still exporting a lot of fish from other countries. It's coming in, and then they're holding those fish and then distributing them to all the pet stores. So they use that a lot more than I do. Big reason I don't use it is I'm going to a lot of people who are, most of my clients so far have been either new koi owners, or they bought a house and it had a koi pond and they're like, hey, let's see what happens. Let's throw some fish in there. So usually they're novice at most. So whenever I'm talking to them about treatments, I have to take into consideration what is easiest for them. So usually immersions are usually going to be easier. Some people will do injections. Now with immersions, whenever you're talking about either monitoring things or doing like monitoring colors, some people aren't really up for that, because there's a lot of cool treatments I would love to do, but it
Yeah.
all depends on the experience. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, but I don't see anything wrong with using it. And then I love what Aaron mentioned about how you're supposed to monitoring it. And I saw in the chat, it looks like ORP. So,
Yes.
and that brings another good point. With a lot of the medications that we use, there are sometimes, depending on what your water quality is, that will affect the effectiveness of that medication. So, for example, oxytetracycline, that can be used. It's an antibiotic for fish, and you can use it in the water. If you have very hard water, which I live in Utah, in Utah, our water is pretty hard. So generally our KH or alkalinity is usually above 100. So I've seen anywhere between like 100, 150, 180 parts per million. Our general hardness is usually anywhere from 150 to 200 parts per million. So it's pretty high. And a lot of those divalent cations will bind to medications. So it sounds like the same thing for PP. So it sounds like first thing you have to do is either put them into a new tank that has fairly clean water. And when I say clean, has less organics or total solids in there, so that your effectiveness is better. And then also having those certain meters, which not everybody's going to have. So with me, if someone was to do that, I probably have to be a little bit more involved with that owner and going to their pond and testing it and making sure that it's within its effective window to fully make sure that it helps.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but if anybody wants to take a screenshot of this, this is the how to do it safely with an ORP meter. If anyone wants to drop me an email, I'll quite happily send them it. I'll forward them it on. But that's their emails in the channel description. If you'd like it, let me know. I'll send you it.
So that covers flukes, I think.
Before we go on to anything else, is there any more questions for Dr. Martinez before? We've done Susan's question right from the beginning. Anybody else?
Susan did ask if my fluke treatment had worked in my pond. So when Dr. Martinez came over, he did some scrapes, he did some gill clippings, and I don't think we found any parasites on anything.
Nope. Yep, it was all clean. And we checked 3 fish. Actually, in total, we never saw any.
Yeah, so my praziquantel treatment, I think, was pretty effective.
Did you PP before your prazi, or did you do that afterwards?
Did that after.
Anne's question. Yeah, but Anne's question is very good, but we can't compare it to the stuff that they use because we can't get it in the UK. That's why I hadn't brought it back up. Anne did ask a question regarding the MS-22 versus the stuff that Vince and they use, but seeing as we can't get it into... What did she ask?
To knock out the coil quicker or less for it to take longer.
Right. So Anne asked, repeat that again for me.
So would you recommend using more sedate to knock out the coil quicker or less for it to take longer?
Would you recommend using more sedate to knock out the koi quicker or less to do it slower? Is that the question? That's the question.
Gotcha. So overall, it depends. It depends on what your goal is. So usually, if it's
Hmm.
just going to physically exam, I go lower because most of the time I don't need them fully out. I just need them calm and amendable so that I can do what's called a skin scrape. So it's getting a glass slide and then just going across their skin and getting a small sample of their mucus layer and then putting it on the slide and then getting a gill clip. So I just get the very tip of the gill and put that on a slide. So I just need them sedate enough. Now, if you're doing a surgery, that's going to be a little bit different. So with surgery, you'll do two different combinations. So you do first what's called induction. So that's usually going to be higher. There is published doses out there for MS-222 for induction of certain breeds, and there is one for koi or cyprinids. So you'll go into a higher one that usually will get them sedate fairly quickly, usually within 3 to 5 minutes. Once they're fully sedate, then you'll move them over to another tank that's lower, and that's just maintenance to keep them sedated for whatever procedure. So if you're going to do, like, say, a skin mass removal, then you can do that. If you're going to do like open up the coelom, or which is basically their abdomen, then you want them a little bit deeper. And once you have them on that maintenance dose, usually you'll put them on what's called a FADS, a fish anesthesia delivery system. There's different ones that are out there, but you can keep them out of the water. Basically it's a recirculating system. So mine basically is a container, and then I have a top part. So in the bottom container is water with a pump, and that's medicated water, and that's pushing the water up a tube. You put that tube into the mouth, and that's going out through their gills. So keeping them aerated and also putting the anesthetic. And then my top part is graded, so that water's coming back through and trickling back down. So it just recirculates. So you can maintain them out of the water to do your surgery. And if they become light, so they're moving a little bit, then you can add a little bit more solution or sedative into that container. If they're getting too deep and their gill percolations are getting less, or if you're monitoring their heart rate with a Doppler, then you can just add a little bit more fresh water or unmedicated water so that they become a little bit lighter. So you can kind of titrate it a little bit different. So hopefully that answered the question.
Over to you, Ty.
Yeah, I just realized during that long pause that I got to say something. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that we needed to go over. Was there anybody else in the chat who has questions? I know there's a lot of people who are here from the fish hobby, not necessarily just boy. Does anybody else have any questions about fish health?
It wasn't just me getting that then.
No, I've had to. I'll just give him a second.
Sounded like a Dalek.
I don't know why our names have disappeared. Someone's just said you should have your names on it, but for some reason, when I brought the chat into it, everyone's names have gone off there. Is that better, Ty?
I still crackling.
You really just drop out the studio and
come back in.
Let me see if I can. So, Dr. Martinez, this is Vince, and last weekend we had a national koi show where, like, I don't know if you saw the one on Ty's channel where they did it at Las Vegas, where they have a big field of vats and everyone takes their koi to compete at a national event. and they're all benched and judged against koi of their size and category. What we're calling that, Vince? Category type.
Class.
No, I've got to think.
Size and class.
Size and class.
So,
that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
So the varieties come under a class category. So like you go Sankey is your Sankey, Kahaku, your Showa, etc., etc.
Right, there we go. I think we're back on. For some reason, I honestly I don't know why it's knocked our names off, but it is what it is. Are you with us, Ty?
I am. You can hear me.
That sounded better. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Let's just throw this in here. Sorry, guys, I've got like 6 windows open, and was trying to figure out why. I thought bringing the chat on would do everyone a favor, but there you go, look. It's been nice to have a Vish vet on. Thank you for your information. There you go.
Oh, awesome. Glad to be on.
No,
yeah,
it's
Robert,
good.
thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
It's really good to share the knowledge on there, and there's lots of people joining from both chats.
Well, it's not something we see over here in the UK, really, is it?
No, not at all. I'm quite fortunate to be able to reach out to people at Nicky's work. I know there's people there that I can speak to about it, and there's also, if you've got a good dealer, Stu from Greenwood Koi, he is the first person I ring for anybody, and George at Wakefield Koi, both of them, send them picture message, guys, what's this? Right, and they are on the money. I don't think there's anything that they haven't ever been able to help me with, and I've learned so much from the pair of them. I probably never would have PP'd my pond fully if it wasn't for George. I know he's done it. He's done it while I've been there at the shop, and it's all right doing it while he stood next to me, but then he lives an hour away from me, coming home and doing it myself. I had to put my big boy pants on. And I was really concerned that obviously the colour thing for me was relying on somebody else to tell me when it changed was the hardest factor for me of that. But it's not bad now. For me, I can just look at the fish behaviour and know if it's too much there, and I just keep sending pictures to friends. What colour is this? What colour is this? What colour is this? To know from there. So yeah, it's hard work for me that, but next time I have to do it, I will be giving. I know Scraggs has mentioned it, and Mark has mentioned it. So
an ORP meter.
I will be trying it with that alongside somebody that can tell me when it's changing. See if I would have been needing to add more, or whether I could have kept it at the same. So for me, it's something that it might be a valuable tool for me to have to do it alongside of it.
Without taking an offence, but for someone who is colourblind, an ORP meter is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
As long, and I say that as long as you've got a decent ORP meter, because I say that I had 3, one being the Cactoily and 2 other pens that were bought from eBay and Amazon, and not one of the 3 pens or the 3 things came out with the same reading at the same time. So if you're going to get an ORP meter, make sure that it's not one of these cheap ones, because you'll end up shooting yourself in the foot with it.
Yeah,
Yep.
invest in decent quality. Is Scrags, have you got a link to the one that you've got? Because I know it won't be rubbish.
Well, yeah.
It'd be good to put on there. I've actually got the Pectoral one, and I've had the one I use is the nuts. Nice one. Send us a link.
Is that our Scrag?
Yeah. I've got the Pectoral one and found there was quite a few differences between that meter. Right, okay, got it from Finch Filtration. That says a lot. There was quite a few differences when I was doing stuff with other things like salinity, using the salinity on that versus the Medicat.
Yeah, the
which is
Medicoy
like
one.
renowned for being the best salinity reader.
Yeah.
And it read 0.2 on the Pectoral, but when I used the Medicat pen, it said I was at 0.6. So if I could have kept salting and salting and salting,
and then got to a point where you
it would
passed
be
the reach. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to the point where I'd added what I would have added in my last pond. I put the same amount of that in, and I thought it can't be 0.2 because I know this is a smaller body of water, so it has to be above 0.3 because I knew I used that. So at that point, it was jump in the car, drive to my dad's, get his, and I even questioned myself, like, my dad's must be wrong. So then I jumped in the car and drove to Stu's shop and said, I need you to test some salinity for me. Yeah, no bother. And them two read exactly the same. I was like, well, there we go. That's why they are considered the best salinity pen. So
yeah,
from that, I will now not trust anything the gauge that gives me because it's been too.
Yeah,
so I took it off after that.
It's one of the reasons I took the Pectoral off as well, was the unpredictability of its readings.
Oh, here we go. Scraggs' whipped thing. I wonder how much it is though. I don't think I can open that link. I think it'll close everybody down.
I think it's the same one that Marcus has just mentioned in the comments.
75 quid HM Digital. Now, if anybody knows anything, that if Andy from Finch Filtration is putting his name to it, it's the best.
Yeah, I had an absolutely awesome chat with Andy at the show this week, and yeah, cracking gentleman.
Fantastic. Is there any other questions that you want to throw out there, or the chat? Anybody else want to throw anything there?
You know, Lumi asked what got Dr. N into fish medicine over the other directions you could have gone with like zoo medicine and things. Like, what did draw you to fish medicine?
Oh, here we go. Right.
Yeah, so the question was, what got me into fish medicine over other options? So I think it was the uniqueness of it, because unlike our terrestrial animals where they're on the ground, breathing air, you can touch them, fish are in the water, so it just kind of adds a bit of a challenge. And also my personality overall, I've always been drawn to off-center type things. So this is kind of just getting more into personal stuff, but growing up, I was more into like just punk music. So grew up listening to that. When I went to undergrad, I did a punk radio station with friends, booking shows. Got eventually into other things, and then the other things I got into were triathlons. And when I got into triathlons, it wasn't just doing like the typical small ones. I decided I wanted to do longer ones. So I started getting to ultra distances like Ironmans. So I've always been drawn to other things besides just the normal path. So fish to me just was just so cool. And it's something we didn't learn in school. And I had to do a lot of extra work to start working with them. So I like that aspect. And I also like the idea of you have to think outside the box or outside the tank, so to speak, to really treat them. Because there's been a lot of like novel things that I've tried and I've had good success. And most of the things I'm trying, they're not overly cavalier. They are based in science and with things that, to me, ultimately, anything I ever do, you always want to consider their safety and welfare. So I've never done something that was too extreme that I thought would bring any harm to me or to the fish itself. But I've done unique x-rays of puffer fish in water, because when you take a puffer fish out of water, they blow up. And they do that because they get stressed. So I've done x-rays with them in tanks full of water, and I've just kind of manipulated them to get them into the position I want for x-rays. And that's worked out really well. The detail's not great, but that works pretty well to be able to get things done. So I like that aspect of I don't have to do things systematically, or well, I do things systematic, but I get to play and do new things because you're working in a different medium rather than just on animals on the ground. So it's a lot
So
of fun.
other than the electric eel that you talked about on Ty's channel, what has been your most challenging fish to work on to date?
Oh man. Besides the eel, that one was probably the hardest. Other ones that I've worked with are probably ones that are venomous that you can't really touch. So I've treated things such as lionfish before.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really sedate, so a lot of it's more visual with those. So treating the water and doing the best without trying to touch them. From there, there's some fish that have certain features that can harm you. So like tangs, they have that little spike at the end of their caudal tail that can cut you. So it's knowing that. Cichlids, they have the dorsal spines. So it's taking some little considerations with that. But some of the harder fish to really work with and treat is probably betta fish. And the reason I say that is you're very limited in what you can do as far as diagnostics with them compared to like larger koi.
Yeah.
Hard to do gill clips on. So you can't really always rely on those. You can do skin scrapes, but trying to do other things a little bit harder. I did figure out a way to ultrasound them, which I learned from another vet in North Carolina. So I at least have that to see if whenever they have a distended coelom, if there's fluid in it. But overall, there's just kind of limited in what I can do, unfortunately. So a lot of it is, which I don't like doing, it's kind of shotgun therapy, where you try and rule out some of the biggies. And then if you can rule out parasites or any obvious wound lesions, then you can at least try different therapies to see if we can get them over whatever's going on. So I find the smaller fish a little bit harder to work with unless you're working with a large group and there's some fish that are affected. Then sometimes you can sacrifice those, send those off for testing at a lab to try and get a diagnosis so you can treat the group. But when it's an individual betta fish, that makes life a little bit harder in what I can do as far as diagnostics. So that's one of the more challenging ones.
We've just got a question from Susan. I'll take the lead on this one. So on one of my videos not so long back, Susan, I showed a drone footage of me putting PP in the pond. What I didn't show is that the first time I did it, it actually lasted about 4 minutes per pull. And I spoke to both, and this is a swimming pool that had no no green on the side of the pond. Like there was no organics in it at all. And I spoke to both George and Stu, and we're racking our brains. And then I realised, oh yeah, I used that detox in my pond like 5 days ago, and it literally neutralised the PP that I'd put it in 5 days prior. Now I did a heavy water change that night, and I went with it again the next day, which then I managed to make it stay for the correct dose. But yes, things like Seacham's Pram, detox, all things like that will have a massive impact on your
sodium thiosulfate.
Yeah, it will really. It's not good to do that. So if you're going to use your treatments, give your filters a good clean. Make sure that you've got none of that in your water to start with, and go from there.
So, what's your favourite variety of koi then?
Mine? I'm still learning the names overall. So please don't please don't attack me on here if I say them wrong or describe them wrong. But the ones that I've always liked, I believe I think it's called Deutz. It's the ones with the large scale. They're scaleless, but they have the large scale plates. I've always
Aragoki.
Yeah, so I've always liked those just because of how cool they looked. And I've never gotten to work with sturgeon, but I absolutely love sturgeon. I think they're really cool fish, and it kind of reminds me of like the little plates that they have on their side. So I really like those. I'm trying to think the other ones. To me, they're kind of colored. I don't know the exact name, but they have like the red, black, and white on them. Those I think they're striking.
In which style? So you've got red, black, and white with big bands of black, or you've got red, white, and black with like little patches of black.
Like
the patches.
black.
The little patches. So Sankey fan.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that is something that I want to learn a little bit more. Even while I was at Ty's Pond, I was telling them that's the one thing I really like is working with owners that know all this, because then I kind of learn.
Don't ask Ty then.
Nick, go upstairs and get them $2. Koi 1 and Koi 2. I don't know if you can get these 2 books.
I know
in the USA. I've got 2 books which would be perfect for you. They go over all of the varieties. It's got a load of stuff on koi medicine in there and stuff like that. They're really, really good books for anybody in the chat that wants to know more. And it also tells you about selecting what to look for in a good one. And what's it called now? So what to look for at a set age to how the koi would progress. My glamorous assistant has just brought these for me. So you've got these 2. Let me just.
Oh my word!
This one.
Mm-hmm.
And this one.
So
okay.
Yes. But
I
when
can't get a hold of that one over here.
You can't.
When was it published?
I don't know. On the first page, is it, Nicky? So
They're a good few years old, those ones.
Oh, I totally agree with you there, Vince. But for somebody that wants to know all the varieties and all the types of shower, everything else like that, it's a really good starting block, and they are really, really good.
They are really good, but for a very, very first time koi keeper, they can be a bit heavy reading.
It shows you. Let me see if I can.
You know,
Are
what I
they pretty
like
easy?
about that book is that it even
Adam.
gets into the specific, like on a Kohaku, for example, like it explains what the like right pattern versus
Ty, I don't know if you can hear us, mate. Just fully leave the studio and dial back in because we can hear like that.
And I am doing my utmost to keep myself PC.
Please do.
Don't be like type up.
Yes, Vin. Which one am I on there? The Ghost Sankey. But yeah, if you can get hold of them books in the US, they are absolutely ace.
They are good books.
Is there any other books you would recommend?
There's one as well. If you get Ty to add us into a Telegram group or something like that, or a WhatsApp group, however you want to do it, I will send you a picture of the cover of the three. I mean, they are all old books, but there's a certain section which I always refer to, like this, which tells you the. Oh my God, the camera's right over there. Look, it tells you that one's on the Deutz Sankey, what to look for at what stage. Let me add Ty back in. What to look for at what stage of the koi's life for when buying. So
No, he gone again.
come on,
But
Ty, we're nearly out
Aaron,
of time, and I can't just say bye without him being on there.
but Aaron, with now bloodlines like the Dragon Ball line,
Oh yeah,
it throws a good chunk of what that book is saying out the window because it's got that Showa bloodline in.
yeah.
And as you know, a Sankey is predominantly a white fish with red and black markings, but a Showa is a black fish with white and red markings. Hence why the black acts completely different on a Showa to a Sankey.
But so there was a couple of people around the show that was asking me what a particular fish was, and like that's the Itsuris, and it even shows you the Kage ones where that was what they was looking at. So even though it is old and it doesn't show you the bloodlines, it really does. It's really got a real lot of information to get your teeth into.
Empire of Dirt Aquatics, Jeff. What's the Dragon Ball? No, Dragon Ball. It's a bloodline that was created by combining a Sankey with a Showa. Like I said, they're predominantly both different fish because one's black based, one's white based, and some of the Sankey that come out from the spawnings of the Dragon Ball, they tend to have more blocky Asumi because of that Showa bloodline in them. It also part of the main reason we're putting the Showa bloodline into the line was to enforce it and make the Sumi better and darker.
Mm-hmm. Here he is.
I was going to say, is he lost to the Ethernet? Is he?
You can hear me, and I don't sound terrible, right?
Yes.
Oh
That's
my
better.
goodness.
You don't sound
know
like
what
a
was
Dalek.
going on. No, Aaron.
I've been messaging you in the private chat for ages, going, Ty, please leave and come back. You obviously don't have the private chat open.
No, I can't
sorry.
see it either.
No, when I get out there, Aaron, do you anticipate those books will be at the show? Somebody selling those?
Quite
Do you know
possibly.
what? At Newark, there is a guy that sells books. But if you want me to look on eBay prior and have them ready at my house, that might be a better option.
Well, then you can just send me a Venmo or PayPal or something, if you would. If that.
Ty,
What?
have you booked an extra suitcase for the return journey?
I probably need to.
I think you should, because don't forget I've got campuses here for you as well.
What? Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
I've already told Ty that he needs to save at least a shoebox size space in his suitcase. So, like,
so yeah, I think you need to book yourself an extra suitcase for the return journey, because of the amount of stuff you're going to be taking home that you can't get in the United States.
Hopefully, it all makes it back with me past TSA.
Ty, in the interest of time, Vince goes live in 12 minutes, so I do think I'd
I think we should wrap it up. You're right.
Thank this guy for sparing his time for us.
Dr. Martinez, thank you so much for coming on. It's a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure people got a lot from this today. So
it'd be good to have him back and chat more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've gathered from this that we do as vets already in aquatics is I find that even though they have books that are out, their greatest resources are the people around you. And the organizations and such. Whenever I have an issue, I don't know all the answers, but I have a buddy I can text, I can message, and they can help. And then I also find that owners themselves, and even you guys are a wealth of knowledge. You know so much about the husbandry, the natural history of these fish, that you guys are resources. And that's the one thing I believe with any kind of fish health, is that it's a cooperation. It's not just me telling you, you need to do X, Y, and Z. There's so much that goes into keeping your fish healthy that it takes everybody. And that's the one thing I love sharing and learning, is that our goal is all the same. When it comes to fish health, at least, is that we want healthy fish. And it takes a village to help with that. So it's not just what I bring to the table, it's also what you guys bring to the table and how we can mesh that together. So I'm truly honored that you guys had me on. I absolutely had a lot of fun, and I hope everybody learned something and took something from it. And yeah, thanks again so much.
Good to meet you.
Oh, and mic dropped.
I love it.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Vince.
He was gone.
Right.
Hey, mate, not a problem.
Boom. Right.
All right. I'll see you later, guys.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and he's back.
There. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
I just thought you just mic.
We thought you were doing a mic drop.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, guys. We really do appreciate everybody on here, and we appreciate both audiences for tuning in. So, to the US,
and we'll see you next month.
Have a good afternoon, a good rest of your day. To the UK audience, have a good evening. And
good morning, good evening, and good night.
Vince's live here is on Twisted Koi in 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes.
So, right.
And I'm not PC.
Yeah.
And so the stream trickles to a close. You've listened, you've learned, you've watched Ty try to pronounce Japanese words again. We've cast our net, and today it pulled up something valuable. Knowledge, insight, maybe even a few controversial filter opinions. To our guest, thank you for diving in. To the audience, thank you for splashing around with us. And to Aaron, well, thank you for keeping this thing from sinking completely. Remember, the pond never sleeps, and neither does curiosity. So until next time, keep your nets ready, your test kits handy, and whatever you do, don't ask about stocking levels in the comments. This has been Hold My Net.